Cheese is one of the oldest foods created by humans. People have been making and eating cheese for thousands of years, long before modern technology or industrial production existed. Across different cultures and regions, cheese has taken on countless forms. Soft and creamy, hard and aged, fresh or fermented, each type reflects local traditions, climate, and time. At its core, cheese is made from milk. Through fermentation and aging, a liquid product is transformed into something solid, rich in flavor and texture. Cheese is valued not only for its taste, but also for its nutritional content. It is a source of protein, fats, minerals, and calcium, and for many people, it is an important part of the daily diet. We are very familiar with how cheese feels. Some cheeses are smooth and elastic, others are crumbly, porous, or stretchy when heated. These textures are so familiar that we rarely question where they come from. Why does one cheese melt and stretch while another breaks apart? Why does aged cheese feel firm, while fresh cheese remains soft and moist? The answers to these questions are hidden deep inside the structure of the cheese. In this video, I take an ordinary piece of cheese, the same kind people eat every day, and examine it under a microscope. I begin by showing the cheese as we normally see it with the naked eye before preparing a very small sample. The sample is tiny, almost invisible, yet it contains the full internal structure of the cheese. Once placed on a microscope slide and carefully prepared for observation, this small fragment becomes a window into a hidden world inside a familiar food. What seems simple, natural, and everyday often turns out to be far more complex when we take a closer look. At 80 times magnification, the cheese sample immediately stops looking like something familiar and edible. Instead of a solid piece of food, it appears as a soft, uneven mass spread across the slide. The structure looks moist and flexible, with gently flowing contours rather than sharp or rigid edges. Some regions appear lighter and almost translucent, while others look denser and more compact. They vary in size and appear both inside the main mass and around its edges. At this level of magnification, the cheese does not look firm or stable. It seems pliable, almost fluid-like, as if it could slowly shift and rearrange itself. There's no clear separation between different internal components yet. Everything blends together into a single soft structure. Even without going deeper, it becomes clear that cheese is not built as a solid block, but as a flexible and complex material. At 200 times magnification, the internal organization of the cheese becomes more noticeable. The structure no longer appears uniform, and subtle patterns begin to emerge. The material now shows a fine-grained texture, with countless small elements packed closely together. Rounded inclusions become easier to distinguish at this level. Many of them are surrounded by thin, darker outlines, forming visible boundaries within the structure. At this magnification, the cheese begins to resemble a carefully balanced system. This level helps explain why many cheeses feel smooth and creamy when eaten. The microscopic structure supports softness while still holding together. At 800 times magnification, the cheese reveals a much more complex and detailed internal landscape. Distinct regions with different textures and appearances fill the frame. Large, rounded formations become prominent. These structures appear smoother and more uniform inside, clearly standing out from the surrounding material. Around these rounded regions, the cheese looks denser and more textured. The contrast between smooth areas and granular zones becomes very noticeable. Numerous tiny particles and small droplets are visible throughout the field of view. The cheese no longer appears as a single substance. Instead, it looks like a combination of different components interacting closely with one another. Some regions appear tightly packed, while others remain looser and more open. This variation adds depth and complexity to the structure. The boundaries between different regions are clearer now, though they remain soft and organic in shape. Nothing looks artificial or sharply divided. At 2,000 times magnification, the cheese becomes almost unrecognizable as food. The structure fills the entire frame and appears extremely detailed. The material looks fragmented into countless tiny formations, Each one has its own shape, size, and texture. Rounded and irregular microstructures are packed closely together, forming a dense microscopic environment. The spaces between them are minimal. Some regions appear more compact and solid, while others look looser and more porous. This unevenness is visible across the entire image. Clear boundaries between micro-components can now be seen. They reveal how tightly organized the structure is at this scale. The cheese no longer appears smooth or creamy. Instead, it looks layered, complex, and highly structured. This extreme view shows how much detail exists far beyond what the human eye can perceive. Every tiny feature contributes to the texture we experience in everyday life. At this level, the cheese feels more like a microscopic landscape than a food product. It is shaped by moisture, pressure, time, and transformation. This is what cheese looks like under the microscope, from a familiar everyday food to a hidden microscopic world. You probably eat cheese often, but you never get to see what it looks like at this scale. If this video made you look at food differently, support the channel by leaving a like. Write in the comments what you would like to see next under the microscope. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more explorations of the unseen world around us.